At the end of last year, Santa Monica released some DLC for God of War Ragnarok. The DLC was a roguelike, where you'd be forced to defeat waves upon waves of enemies, trying to progress further in the game until you could complete it. This is the structure of most roguelikes, and it's not usually a genre that I'm personally overly fond of. But I was addicted to Valhalla. Not only is it a very competent roguelike, it served as essential character development for Kratos, as he learns to stop running from his sins and instead embrace them in order to become a better person and help others more effectively. This is an incredible DLC, one that every God of War fan should experience, and there's really no excuse not to, given that it's free? You're telling me they've created some DLC this outrageously brilliant, and it's free? That's just absurd, and there's no excuse you can possibly have to not play this, but let's start things off with the story, the most important part of this for me. So, the premise of the game is as follows. Following the events of God of War Ragnarok's main game, Freya has asked Kratos to become the new God of War, something that's a little bit of a touchy subject for Kratos given his history with the role. Kratos responsibly asks for time to consider, as he struggles with retaking that responsibility given the chaos he caused in the Greek world. Following this offer from Freya, he then receives an invitation to visit Valhalla, and he accepts it, knowing very little other than that he has been asked to go. He then travels through Valhalla, which relentlessly tests his mental resolve on his moral standpoints. As a man who has caused so much pain across his life, he wonders if he is even worthy of being given the opportunity to reform, and ponders whether it is even possible for him to do so. A lot of this story really serves as a love letter to the original Greek games, as it links back to the Greek saga beautifully, with enemies and certain characters returning in small doses within his mind to tease and question his ethics. Valhalla manages to round out Kratos' character even more so than I genuinely thought was possible. Through 2018's installment and Ragnarok respectively, it was clear to see Kratos' development, growing into his role as a father, but there always was that fear of who he used to be. He wanted to shield Atreus from learning of his lineage. He was hesitant to regain the Blades of Chaos, due to his fear of being a monster once again, but tapped into that side of himself when his son needed him to do so. This is a man who has tried his best to move on and grow, but has always clung on to the awareness that the monster deep inside could always return at any point. In Valhalla, we are witnessing a man undergoing self-reflection in its truest and most raw form. Kratos must face his demons head-on, time after time after time, in order to assume this new responsibility of becoming the God of War. He doesn't want to be absolved of his sins, he knows that he doesn't deserve that, but he begins to recognise that he must accept the bad he has done in order to more successfully do good. He feels unworthy of this responsibility given what happened the last time he wielded it, and he knows there are people counting on him. Valhalla is a journey of self-reflection, one that exceeded my expectations in emphatic fashion. But what about the structure of the game? Valhalla is a roguelike. Ragnarok was not a roguelike, so how does this work? Well, I'm not overly experienced in roguelikes. I've played a few, most of the major ones, but not a bunch, and my understanding is that this is in fact a roguelite. You don't just bring back knowledge and increase skill from each run, you actually improve Kratos himself with each attempt. There's a few currencies you can unlock along the way. There's fleeting echoes, which are to be spent on that specific run on temporary upgrades, such as improving the level of the abilities that you acquire along the way, or healing yourself or filling up rage, that sort of thing. You can also unlock seals, which are to be spent on the shore after each attempt on permanent upgrades, such as general stats like health or damage, or even on resurrection stones. Within each run, you can also acquire burdens, which will give you a specific nerf for a few combat encounters, such as health stones will do less healing, or abilities will do less damage, or something along those lines. But if you do survive the next few encounters, you will in return receive a reward for the rest of the run. God of War has difficulty levels, and as such, so does Valhalla. The higher the difficulty, the better the reward. I chose to play the game on the normal difficulty since I hadn't played the game since beating Ragnarok a couple months after its release, and I kind of regret doing that. I didn't die once. I died in the final boss fight of the final run, but had a resurrection stone because I'm a crafty son of a bitch. So if the main game gave you very few problems, I'd actually recommend boosting the difficulty up a notch. Not just for the rewards, but you'll resonate with Kratos' struggle a bit more, I feel. It's not so much a roguelike in the sense of you keep dying and upgrading until you're strong enough to make it to the end. It's more a case of each time you make it to the end, you face the boss and then advance the story. You then just do it again to get to the boss to advance the story, who will get harder each time with a new weapon, and then advance the story. From memory, you face the boss around 3 times, I think, but your first few runs won't allow you to get that far. I think you enter Valhalla around 7 times in total, if you did everything perfectly. When you enter Valhalla, the first few rooms will offer chests which determine the abilities you'll be dealing with in that run. But since God of War Ragnarok has excellent combat, I never once felt hamstrung by the look of the draw. I'm proficient with the axe, blades and the spear, so no matter what abilities the game gave me, I was able to make it work with minimal struggle. This is probably the only element of the roguelike formula not really working in this context, because there's no bad options really. There are abilities I was more comfortable using since I'd used them more in the main game, but I was always happy to use everything, so it's kind of a suffering from success situation. This meant that build didn't really feel overly important in my experience, although they do incentivize you to mess around a bit with your rage ability and the shield. Before each run, you just choose which shield and rage ability that you wish to use. We all of course had our favourites from the main game, but the game will highlight one of each before the run, and selecting them will give you extra rewards at the end. This was a nice touch and led to further experimentation that I probably otherwise wouldn't have done, but again, there are viable options, so it didn't feel like there was any drawback to selecting the extra rewards. In terms of the gameplay, it's obviously God of War's gameplay. There's a couple new additions that fit the story nicely, but nothing major that I noticed at least, but that's probably because God of War just suits this formula. Most roguelikes I've played have been 2D side-scrollers or top-down isometric games. I've not played one in the third-person action format, but my god, this works. God of War just suits this formula. As I mentioned earlier, the game has so many incredible abilities that the transition just feels natural. I was happy to get to experiment with abilities I didn't use much in the main game. And then there's the Greek element. You face off against Greek enemies such as the Minotaur for example, and it just works. It's still the same combat as the Norse games, but fighting the Greek enemies within this combat style just made me a little bit giddy. There's even a new rage ability where you get to wield the Blade of Olympus, and its introduction is just executed fantastically. Valhalla will definitely take you under 8 to 9 hours to finish, but there is a lot of endgame stuff to do if that's your kind of thing, and I really enjoyed every second of it. It blends nostalgia with its modern philosophy brilliantly, and brings with it a sense of maturity in its writing that's exceedingly rare to find in this industry, let alone in a free update to a game that came out a year ago. God of War Ragnarok serves as a fitting denouement to the Norse era of God of War, as we help Kratos come to terms with his past and gain the opportunity to find redemption for his sins by bringing hope to others as the new God of War. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, as that would greatly help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, make sure to subscribe because I upload every single week. But that is all for now. Have a nice day and goodbye.
Don't you? Kratos. I have not forgotten the debt I owe.